Hey guys, for today's podcast, we're joined by a very good friend of mine, Mr. Gareth Nicholson. Great guy, originally from South Africa. He's currently the Chief Investment Officer and Head of Discretionary Portfolio Management and Managed Investments for a major private bank here in Asia with oversight for Singapore, Hong Kong and Dubai. In today's discussion, we talk a little bit about his journey growing up in South Africa, moving to London, and then moving here to Asia and Singapore, what it was like moving from asset management to private banking. Welcome, Gareth. Cheers. G-Man, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
It's good to see you, mate.
You too.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, keeping out of mischief as much as I can. Busy times.
I hear
you. Work, play, kids, trying to find a good balance.
It's a lot of work. Now, for the audience, if you can be kind enough, just introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do?
Sure. Gareth Nicholson. I'm a CIO at Nomura International. My background, I come from South Africa. I was born there, grew up there.
Whereabouts in South Africa?
Close to Cape Town.
Okay.
So that was the nice bit when we were young, close to the beach, running around.
Beautiful.
Playing in the sticks, in what we call the veldt, which was just out in the garden, and the neighbors just digging holes and messing around. And then for job reasons, money reasons, Dad moved us up to Johannesburg, or close to Johannesburg.
How old were you when you guys moved up?
We were about 12, 13.
Is Joburg, I've not been, is it very different from Cape Town?
Massively. I mean, the beach is very chilled, slow. That's like going to, a really small little town in Australia where it's sleepy. And this is outside of Cape Town. And then Johannesburg is more like being in a city.
Okay.
We were still in the suburbs, but you've got that hustle and bustle and that kind of movement that you need. I was still relatively in the suburbs, but you could feel it wasn't the same sort of kind of relaxed atmosphere. So you had to kind of, I suppose, pick up your pace and look to find hustles to keep you going. But it was good. It was a good childhood.
When you left Cape Town and then moved to Joburg, how old were you?
13.
13. So high school was all there?
No, I started high school in Johannesburg.
No, that's what I mean.
So
So in terms of like because where I grew up in the UK, because I know you played rugby, for example. Is it based on the school that you go to that they have a certain sport?
Ours was seasons. So South Africa, cricket was the summer months, rugby was the winter months, and everyone just played like that.
Okay.
In Cape Town, you played from 4 or 5 years old. You were on the beach playing rugby.
Okay.
In Johannesburg, you only started 7, 8, 9. Okay. So we had 4 or 5 years on top of the Joburg guys. So we came there. I was pretty good at an early age. Gave me a bit of a head start. So played a lot of rugby, which was great.
Was that your first love, sports-wise?
Be honest, growing up, parents, a bit like, unlike today, it was, you finished school, okay, that's your report, but are you in the sports team? Are you in the cricket team? Are you in the athletic team?
Yeah.
It was massively pushing sports and being outside and running around. Academic was secondary to being part of a team, to being
Was that your parents specifically, or do you think it was that? Because my dad was like that, but my mum wasn't like that.
Definitely my parents,
okay.
But I don't really remember too many of the tiger mom parents in our school. I don't think of any of my friends that were really pushed academically. It wasn't really a thing.
In Singapore, it's difficult because I've had 2 kids go through PSLE, and we try to alleviate any stress and pressure. But the reality is, it's in the ecosystem, right? So they're there, and the teachers are stressing out, the other parents are stressing out, and it's that vicious cycle.
Well, exactly, because you try and not put that extra pressure because they've got enough. But if everyone around them is thinking about it, is talking about it, it's pretty difficult. But at the same time, I think kids do need a level of pressure. We had pressure if we didn't make the rugby team. We had pressure if we weren't in the cricket team.
Yeah.
I think that pressure kind of drives you, but you still have to have an outlet that you have fun. So as long as they're still studying hard, but they have an outlet to have fun, sports, I think, is a little bit easier because when you're really playing with your friends outdoors, even if you're taking it seriously, there's an element of fun built into it. Studying, sometimes you don't get that, right?
Do you feel, I know I'm a little bit biased here, but when I meet people professionally that did a lot of sports, and especially at a good level, I always think, listen, they're probably going to be very good at work because they'll take those skills, they're transferable, and that work ethic, that dedication. Do you think like that as well, or?
I think it gives you different dimensions, and I think people with more dimensions makes it more interesting and more able to adapt. So if you're very good at sports, and what happens for most people is you you get to a high level at a certain stage, and then you realize, wow, it's either genetics, or I just don't have that makeup to continue,
Yeah.
or I'm just not lucky that I'm in a country where this sport has enough capacity, and you have to decide, you know what, I'm not going to be 100% a professional sportsman,
Yeah.
and I'm going to move on. So then you have to say, wow, I need to adapt. I need to take that logic, and I
Great
need
point.
to apply it to whatever field I'm going to go for.
Very true. So for me, when I left the UK, I knew probably wasn't going back. Was it the same for you, or?
No, I didn't have plans. To be honest,
really?
I literally my stubbornness was lucky enough to fall into a career. And I come from a country where 40% of the youth are unemployed. All right, so
Wow.
And maybe when I was growing up, it was probably closer to maybe 25, 30.
Okay.
But there weren't that many jobs. But at the same time, people weren't pushing for the academic side. So
Yeah.
my stubbornness I really love solving problems, which turned into a love for mathematics and problem solving and kind of engineering, turned into I need to make money, so I started tutoring. Then I studied maths.
What did you study at uni?
Mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's how you became a part-time math teacher?
Yeah. And then I became a full-time maths teacher after school.
Okay.
So I was teaching high school students.
How was that?
Brilliant. Still probably my favorite job. I was 23 teaching 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
Remember in South Africa, my wife still laughs, but we had at least 2 hours a day where teachers weren't around, so you would have freeze. We had a lack of teachers. So
Wow.
whenever they had someone that was willing to teach,
Yeah.
they were very accommodative. So I was the youngest teacher in the school by a while, but they needed teachers. So
I bet the
very
kids,
happy.
they probably connected with you.
We did. It was great, and because I was still kind of learning at the same time at university and teaching part time, so it was a good connection. I really, really enjoyed it, but you didn't make any money. I'd never been overseas before, so 23, never been overseas. Someone said, "Oi, I'm going to London. Do you want to come with?"
Yeah.
And was able to get a visa back then because of the Commonwealth. So it was a 2-year working visa. Went over to London, sold my car. My dad used to work as an auctioneer.
Okay.
So he used to sell cars and houses and things. We got a really cheap City Golf. I don't know if you remember those old small City Golfs.
Of course.
So fixed it up, me and my brother. Loved it, put the big speakers in the back. The
woofer.
Yeah, exactly. And then we sold that and used that money to go overseas. And
So you went together? With your brother?
He came for a little bit.
Okay.
Then he went and followed his career as a pilot.
Oh, wow.
So he went to Botswana, where it's easier to get flying hours.
Yeah.
So he got stuck there for 15 years, and I got stuck in London for 12 years.
But is he flying domestically, internationally, or?
So he loves flying.
Okay.
And he says flying the big planes is like riding a bus.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's so much. He says you make a lot of money, but he doesn't enjoy that side. So he pivoted and he got his helicopter license.
Oh, wow.
So now he's in Australia flying between the mines and
Really?
those kind of things. So,
Wow.
there's always one in the family that's the cool kid.
Yeah, that's him.
Unfortunately,
I thought that was you.
mate,
He's even cooler than you, maybe.
Way behind. I'm way behind. Yeah.
Wow. So when you went to London, you knew no one, you didn't know what you were going to do?
Yeah, we had an aunt way back that apparently, there was family ties. She kept us for a few days.
Where was it in London? Was it Earl's Court or something?
They were in Maidstone, but we weren't there long before we were kicked out because we were spending more time in London, coming back after a few beers.
I bet.
And then we found a place in the east near a place called Barking.
Okay,
which
yeah,
at the time was a little bit
run down.
rough and ready.
Yeah.
But it was close to Liverpool Street, and that seemed like that was a place where it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I got a job in a pub in Liverpool Street where I was working, and honestly, in those days, one of the skill sets that was highly appreciated was the ability to hold a conversation and hold a beer. So honestly, that's what got me into my first job. It wasn't my master's degree. It was the ability to talk to people at the pub, be able to hold a conversation, to be engaging. And then one day the guy said, "I've got an opening, but by any chance, do you know like anything about maths?" Yeah, actually, I'm not too bad at that.
Are you serious?
And that's how I got into derivative trading.
Jeez.
So from the pub, went to a big investment bank.
I didn't know
internship, was through that. And I was very lucky. He was a great guy. And so, there wasn't any internship program or applying to XYZ. The interview was in the pub. It was a lovely guy, and we just kind of worked towards that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that was the difference, was the ability to talk and connect with people back
Engagement.
then meant that you kind of had things already when you hit the floor to talk about. So you spend so many hours with people, but how often do you actually know the people you work with?
Yeah.
And you can do an interview process, you can do 10 different interviews. People are already on their A game. They're kind of in a different kind of mode. You don't get to know someone until you spend time with them.
Very true.
But being able to relax and have a drink, I'm not saying drink is the only way to get to know someone, but,
No, but
in London back in the...
that's the culture, right?
That was the culture, yeah.
I'll tell you a quick funny story. So back in the day when I started in recruitment, I had a gig at the Institute of Electrical Engineers, which is right next to the Savoy Hotel. And I had sold it to them that I would provide all their silver service, wine waiters, sous chefs, you name it. And I had a massive gig that night with 250 guests. And unfortunately, 3 of the wine waiters didn't turn up on the day, right? Because they were getting paid £4.50 an hour. And I had hired all of my friends that went to uni because they'd already paid for their travel card. So they were already in central London. And the gig was like from 6 to 10:30. And I'm panicking. And I'm 18 and it's the first time I've won this contract. And I'm thinking, shit,
I've got to solve this. Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I don't even remember, there was a shop called Mr. Buy Right. And it was bargain basement clothing. So I went and bought 3 waistcoats, 3 shirts, 3 bow ties, and 3 pairs of pants, trousers. And I thought, I'm going to call some more friends, nothing. So I went to the pub at the top of the Strand, and these 3 South African guys were in there, and we were talking. And I'd been into the pub a few times before, and I just said, how are you guys doing? How much do you earn an hour? And I said, look, I've got a gig working 4 nights a week. I can pay you £6.80 an hour, which was my charge out rate, so there'd be no profit. The only thing is you have to leave now. And they hated their boss, apparently. They said, what, right now? I said, I'll pay you cash in hand tonight. I took my total net worth out of the bank to do this.
Fantastic.
And
you're on the edge.
They left with me.
Wow.
So we were
Crazy.
walking down to the Institute of Electrical Engineers, filling in their health declaration forms, and I was teaching. They were barmen, so they knew how to do most things, but they didn't know how to serve white wine, red wine, port, Madeira. And I remember, but you're 18, you're in it, you're in the game. You're not really thinking how amazing it is, but when I look back, it was brilliant.
I get like goosies, tingling feeling hearing that, because that's kind of how you create memories, right? And I bet you had to touch base with those guys again. They would remember it. You'd be able to link.
Yeah.
Because you're creating things that are just like out of the norm. It's different. You bring in energy. You had to bring super energy to that engagement to get them involved, right? That's awesome.
So then what happened after that? So where were you working? What did you do on the deriv side?
So I was working at firstly settlements on the derivative desk for, I don't know if we can say names.
Yeah, if you want to. It's up to you.
Yeah. So it was Deutsche Bank.
Okay.
So Deutsche Bank in the city in London. As I said, I'd never worked in a big firm before. So
where was their office?
There was 1 Appold Street,
okay,
which is just behind Liverpool Street Station.
Okay. So Liverpool Street was the epicenter for you.
Yeah, and to be honest, the reason I went for this job, because I was offered another job in finance. It was as a teller, and it was going to get paid more money.
Okay.
But when I went to the recruitment agent, and in those days they used to have a magazine, I can't remember what it was called, TNT or something, but they used to have all these kind of job descriptions.
Yeah.
And I went through that, looking at what sounded good, and I combined all the things that sounded good and kind of put it into a wish list. And what kept popping up was this idea of a trader. And I didn't really know exactly what it was about.
Yeah.
But when I went to this job recruiter that was going to offer me this bank job, I remember clearly she said, nah, you'll never be a trader. That's just impossible. You'll never be a trader. And as soon as she said, it's impossible,
bang,
then I started driving. And I think it's sometimes that the universe is speaking to you, because when this guy in the pub was talking about trading, I'm sure I probably gave out the right kind of energy, and that kind of attracted the role. But long story short, I got in a very junior role at derivative trading and fixed income, which was very big back in the day in London. Did my job. I was pretty good at it. I wouldn't say the best by any means, but I did find that everything was very manual back then.
Okay.
And with a bit of a logic to solving problems, and a very impatient person, and I hate repetitive things. I taught myself some basic programming, some VBA and Python stuff, and I automated my job. So literally there was 4 people doing our job, and I automated my job away.
Really?
And the guys around me were saying, yeah, but you don't, if you keep doing it at the speed, it only takes us 2 weeks to finish this part of the thingy. You've done it in 3 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but I can't just sit doing this. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was fortunate to do that. Not complex, but at the time no one was doing it. And the boss then said, wait a second, come, I've got another role. And then he got me actually talking to the other guys who were a lot of English guys actually living in the East. So given I was living in the East in Barking and went to Romford for a drink and stuff, I could again luckily connect. And then I just flew from there. Then we started trading a lot more derivatives, so interest rate swaps, futures, CDS, and that was before the GFC. So these really ballooned. If you think of what's happened in the finance world, those kind of derivatives really ballooned in the early days, going from like 2000 to 2007, 2008, and I was kind of part of that wave, which was quite exciting. It was a really good time to be in London, to be a young guy working there.
What a switch for you! Like, at what point did you think, am I really here? Because you were in the bar 5 minutes before.
Yeah, well, we were still in the bar a fair amount of time, to be honest. But it was really good. And what I really liked about it was kind of that old school, you had to be involved. So we had rules that if you typically had to be in the office 6:30, 6:45. If you're in after 7, you had to buy everyone breakfast.
Okay.
And this wasn't just a fun, ha.
Yeah.
You were buying people breakfast, but you also knew your boss was going to be on your back. My boss, absolutely fantastic. Still probably my best boss I've ever had. Was an old school options trader from Chicago. He actually worked in the pits.
Really?
A short guy with turtle neck glasses, and he would absolutely rip you to pieces if you got something wrong. He would take you apart. But if someone ever attacked his team, he would defend you till the hill. He would absolutely defend the team like we had never done anything wrong. He would push back like you've never seen.
Yeah.
Then behind closed doors,
you get it.
Then you would get it. But you knew exactly where you stood.
That old school mentality.
Fantastic. And he grew a team that were around him for 7, 8, 9 years. He had that stability. We worked hell of a hard together. We were in early. We left late. We had fun together. We partied. We traveled. We did our things.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. But he knew how to build that team.
He inculcated that culture.
Yeah.
Are you still in touch with him?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So then what happened after that? What was the next stage of your career?
So I go again, a bit of luck, but maybe like Gary Player says, the harder work, the luckier you get. But I was coming close to the end of the work permits that I'd been able to extend, and I was thinking maybe it's time to go back to South Africa.
How old were you at this stage?
24-ish, 25-ish, somewhere around there. And I think somewhere, but basically, I think around there, maybe a little older, but about 2007-ish.
Okay.
And what happened was a huge hedge fund had come in, and we were doing very well at the time at the bank. And so two things happened. Firstly, Deutsche Bank sold out this part of the business to an asset management.
Okay.
And we went and started working for Aberdeen Asset Management, a Scottish firm that also has a fantastic working environment. Really great in London. It was really work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
Great Christmas parties, great team working.
Did you know who they were beforehand, or not really?
No, I remember.
That's the irony, right?
Yeah. So they just came in one day and said, "We're buying you out." And it was a big takeover.
Bang. They've always had a great reputation. I remember back home, right? Yeah.
And I mean, they did a lot of buyouts. We had five different buyouts. Ours was the biggest over 5 years during this period. So many changes, so many new people also leaving, moving. But with this boss, he was able to keep his team very stable during that period. And we really appreciated it because you saw a lot of people moving. Because were
you the only non-Brit, or was it an eclectic team?
I think I was. There was, there was a few Irish and mainly English, and I was the only real.
Isn't it funny when you live abroad? Because the one thing I miss about living, in England and Ireland is the banter.
Yes,
I love the banter.
Non-stop, right? Non-stop.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be on your A game nearly every day, or you're gonna get it.
Oh, you're gonna get it every day anyway, especially when you don't know football as well as the other guys. Or you think rugby is better than football, or something like that. It's and most of them come from the East, or it was just really good fun. But what happened then was after we were at the firm and the team was doing very well in the period, I was fortunate that a huge hedge fund came in. And they basically poached the very senior guys from the team.
Oh, really?
So they came in and they said, boom, because we kind of collectively joined together with the portfolio managers and the traders at the time, and we had a really good thing going for a few years, great performance, and they came in, one of the biggest hedge funds still today. They came in and said, thank you guys. we'd love for you guys to come on board. And I remember Sunday evening, my boss phoned through. He had now been management, so he was managing a few teams, so he wasn't part of this kind of nucleus. But he said, look, it's a great opportunity for these guys. This is a really great space. I'd like to keep you, but appreciate these guys are going to give you a nudge in if you want to go along with them. He was very honest, and we had a real frank discussion. And it sounded great, and it was great for these guys as well. But me personally, there was no guarantee of any sort of extra employment. I would have been on a work permit going forward. And the bank then said, you know what, we want to keep you. We will commit to getting your passport, which at this stage was 5 more working years with support from the company.
That's the other thing a lot of people don't realize. If you're a foreigner in a country, you feel restricted.
Yeah, you're always on that cautious mode. You lose your job, you got to move.
And that's the thing, right? So then what happened? How did that unfold?
So that again was a sign of, wow, I'm lucky, and they really, really value me. They're going to go through this extra level of support and go through it. So I said, you know what, I'll stick around. This is fantastic. And it ended up me getting my British passport, which has opened up many doors for me, which is great, because on a South African passport...
Have you got a dual passport? Yeah.
On a South African passport, you can't really travel without visas to very few places.
A lot of restrictions.
It's a lot of restrictions. And then working becomes even more difficult.
Yeah.
And I was able to pass it to my son as well now, which has also been a benefit for the whole family.
Yeah.
But what happened with that was sticking with the company also meant that from being a junior in a team and then a lot of the seniors leaving, the business is still there.
Yeah.
I got pushed up. I had to take responsibility. I was the only person, or one of a few, that knew the whole product from end to end. So your opportunity just went right up.
Brilliant.
And the timing was phenomenal because we were heavily derivatives traders. And because all the senior guys have left, the natural thing to do is take risk really, really low. Be prudent. You don't want to be taking a large amount of risk. And what happened just after 2006, 2007? Bang. So we looked very smart because we were holding a very low amount of risk compared to a lot of other players at the time.
So exposure was minimal.
Exactly. So because of that, and we didn't really go back after GFC to a big derivative desk, they said, where do you want to go? You've proven yourself. And then I was able to start choosing where do I want to go. And
I'm just curious, is that your boss? Is it HR? Is it a group of people?
I think what happens, in my humble opinion, is as soon as you start building capital with one person and you get that, and if they're respected in the firm, you can slowly start leveraging that across HR, across different sides.
This is something I think a lot of people maybe they realize it, but they don't think about it. If you don't have a godfather or godmother in the business, it's so much more difficult. You need that sponsor, or ideally a few champions.
Yeah, I keep thinking it's not about charity; it's about a partnership.
Yeah,
you can't be looking for someone just to give you help all the time.
100%.
You've got to be able to making them look better, supporting them, giving that stability, showing that you also solve their problems. Because the more you can help them and give, eventually you can go to them and ask them. But if you just go and ask someone, it's the same as like you probably see, on LinkedIn, you get requests all the time. Someone comes straight out and says, I need your help to do X.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've got to build up a relationship with anyone before you start asking for things.
Very true.
Particularly with a company, particularly when you want something big like maybe moving abroad or a work permit or something, you've got to kind of build that relationship.
What's interesting though, because I find a lot of people are very transactional. And for me, if you don't need to do something for a reason. If you just try and help people, it will come back. And I've always subscribed to a rising tide raises all ships. But I think it's a bit sad in our industry. Not everyone necessarily subscribes to that. And I saw The Rock post something the other day on his birthday. And he was talking about success. And he said, look, he's been fortunate and blessed to get where he is. But his goal is to elevate everyone that works with him and vice versa. And if you meet people like that that are like-minded, bang.
Exactly. You're super lucky if you can find someone that wants to do that.
Yeah. So then they said to you, what do you want to do? And what did you say?
Well, then I had a choice. So I was able to say, where's the most exciting next space? At that stage after GFC, it was the European crisis. Okay. It was what they used to call the PIGS, the Portugal, Italy, Spain, Greece. So I said, I want to work on the desk that looks at that. And that opened up a lot of interesting space because you really get to dive into, where the tire hits the floor, the traction. It was tough in Europe back then.
Yeah, for sure.
So really got to understand that. And then when that started getting clearer, I said, well, emerging markets, I'm South African. I want to dive into that. And the team were fantastic. And so it just started expanding out. And then I was like, okay, I'm doing emerging markets across the globe, but I've only ever lived in South Africa and the UK. I should explore. So me and the wife said, where do we want to go? We said,
How old were you when you got married? You should know this, Gareth.
I should know this. 30.
Okay.
Yeah. 10 years.
Wow, congrats,
No,
man.
31.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the goal was let's go over to Asia.
Okay.
And again, dumb luck where. We heard of Hong Kong being really fun. We had friends that lived in Australia. So we said, okay, it's either going to be Hong Kong or Australia. And the company said, well, look, we've got an opening in Singapore. Why don't you go and try? Go and look at the map, find out where Singapore is. Literally that kind of side.
Did you come out before you took the job?
No.
I love it, man.
No.
I love it.
So
What was the missus doing at the time?
so she was also quite exciting. She was an interior designer. Then during GFC, it kind of blew up. So she started her own, for a company, she started her own gig. And also being quite approachable and friendly, she found a friend of a friend that owns a large amount of the hotels around St. Pancras.
Really?
St. Pancras at that stage had just got the Eurostar.
Yeah.
So you went from an area that wasn't that...
It was, King's Cross, what its reputation was back
Exactly.
then. Yeah.
So he owned a lot of the hotels around King's Cross.
Wow.
A lot. Which were not the best at that stage.
It's completely gentrified now.
And my wife's job at that stage was be given an open checkbook to convert 2-star hotels to 4-star hotels.
Really?
So she had a credit card to go and buy furniture and go crazy. And for an interior designer, architect, that was heaven.
Yeah, but that might have had consequences in your relationship because you might have thought, I'm going to do this at home as well.
Well, exactly. We're still renovating every 3 months, but that's another pain. But yeah, so she absolutely loved that. And to her credit, she said, okay, let's do this. And we came over here with the intention of maybe starting a business up again in Singapore, but it was difficult.
It's tough.
We were not PRs or anything when we were on an EP. You had to hire X amount of people and earn a certain salary.
It's so tough.
Couldn't do that. So she had to pivot.
Yeah.
And to a point, she pivoted, and she's enjoying it. And she kind of we kind of went from there.
So, what year was this when you came to Singapore?
2000. We've been here 12 years now. So
Okay.
2012.
And then, what was the gig in Singapore?
It was trade and derivatives for emerging markets.
Okay.
PM at Aberdeen. So I was with them for 14 years, which I really, really recommend at your early ages. Delay gratification. Focus on learning and then earning, and you move within a company for sure.
Yeah.
But have that capital that you can rely. I could still go back to my boss even when I was working for another boss and say, "What do you think? You know the politics.
Yeah.
How does this work?"
That's huge. I think longevity and loyalty it's overlooked a little bit these days, right? Because people always say to me, "I'm in the headhunting business. You must move a lot of people and multiple times." And I said, "Well, actually, in the last 17 and a half years that I've been a business owner, just over 96% of the people we've placed, believe it or not, are still working where we placed them."
Amazing,
right?
Right?
So, but I believe in that. That's fantastic.
You've got to find the company that matches the person.
Yeah.
And if it matches and the company doesn't change, then as long as you feel like you're still learning and hopefully earning at the same time, you stick with the company and you just move to where the next synergy is.
Were the senior managers, were they very international? Were there a few guys from Scotland? What was the outfit like?
Yeah, it was very international back then. People from all over, but still also a really great culture. So you would have the wine trolley come around on a Friday, which was lovely.
Really?
But then even better than that was the last person that was employed, he was the one that would pour wine for everyone. So if it was a senior managing director, it was his turn to go around and pour wine. And the best was when you had a hiring freeze and the senior manager was the last one hired and he had to spend 6 months every Friday pouring wine for everyone, right up to the juniors.
Really?
So this was 4:30 on a Friday afternoon.
So the wine trader brings in a bunch of bottles?
The head of the company was a big wine connoisseur. He gave his wine to the team. They would just come in, you'd have a glass of wine at the desk, and you'd finish your last half an hour of work, and then you'd all go and have a drink after work, and you'd have fun. And that atmosphere then grew into so many things. So one of the things I'm proud of is for the last at least 10 years, every year we've gone out and done something a little bit crazy with the team, no matter where I've been. So, for example, last year we did a Cambodia charity tour.
Okay.
We also all learned how to be performers, circus performers.
Really?
This year, the team all went to Tuscany, or part of my team, and we did wine, golf, and steak, and we really got to know each other. We're going to Philippines to do Habitat for Humanity, where you actually get to build alongside professional builders someone's home later this year.
Amazing.
And I've done one of these or two of these every year for the last 10 years.
Have you been sourcing all of these? Because
Yeah.
I know you would have done Tuscany.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Tell
Tuscany for
us
sure.
about your love affair with Tuscany.
That's just after COVID. I don't know what you're feeling of COVID, but COVID was really tough. And in Singapore,
It's like a blurry memory. I was talking about this yesterday. It was like, what the hell did we do for 2 years?
yeah, parts of it I wish we still had, like the amount of
Yeah.
time we could spend with young kids and
Yeah.
being close and not focusing on, just focusing on the now because you didn't know what was actually happening.
I don't know if this sounds crazy. I'm sure you're probably the same. I actually enjoyed a big chunk of it
Massively.
because you know that we're never going to get this again. And but we were lucky that
Yeah.
we had some money. We were employed. Or,
Exactly. We were very fortunate. Again, most things that kind of happened that we had a little bit of space, and I had a young family, and he couldn't move anywhere. He was only, my boy's 5 now, so he was only really early stages then.
Yeah.
So you've got to spend a lot of time. But the family dynamic is extremely hard, particularly when you don't even have family down the road. I know
Yeah.
you couldn't see them in Singapore or in many places, but when they were far away,
Yeah.
and your grandparents passing away,
so tough.
the world became
Just
very
isolated.
so many people have left, from working abroad to go closer to home. You
Yeah.
see so many Australians moving back, UK, all over.
100%.
So COVID was very tough, and we were very close to leaving. But we do love Singapore, and I love the work. But we had to find a way of trying to connect family.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, South Africa is not the easiest and most conducive place, particularly around Johannesburg, for bringing a family every time.
Yeah.
It can be stressful. And
For
when
sure.
you want to have holidays, you want to try to find a space. So we decided we want to find a place to build memories. We spent 2 years when the kid was younger traveling around, and we always just ended up going back to Italy. For some reason, Italy, you land there
Yeah.
and everything just calms down. I never get stressed out. I don't know if it's the wine or the food or the air, but it's just...
It's everything, right? Because the people are so amazing. They love children.
Oh, yeah.
They love children, right? You can go to a restaurant and you almost don't need to worry about the kids. The nonna will look after the
And
kids
it's
that are
real,
running out.
right? You sit at that restaurant, the person will come over,
Yeah.
and my son will go, buongiorno.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes, the waiter will be chatting and laughing with him and make him happy. And you can see that other people aren't getting served, but they're patient.
Yeah.
And they're having a moment, and
Yeah.
they respect that. There's not this rush that you get in big cities. And we absolutely loved it. And we said, okay, we're going to find a space to build memories here. And all the family just come over. We took a while. We found a.
Did you know Tuscany was the area that you wanted to home in on straight away, or did you look at other places?
Be honest, this was everything we've ever done is iterations.
Yeah.
We went every holiday for 2 years. We traveled a bit. We dragged the little guy. We made it adventures. So each place was, okay, this is a castle. You go and explore. Mom and Dad are going to look to see if there's any leaking taps and things like that.
Yeah.
But
I love it.
we eventually found what is like our perfect holiday home, family home.
And when you saw it, did you know, okay, we're going to make an offer, we're going to try and close this deal?
No, we
Took a bit of time?
We took our time a little bit, and fortunately, it kind of worked out. The guy that owned it was a lovely guy, even better than him, who's a lovely guy, was the team that had been looking after the house for 20 years.
You told me it was already a functional Airbnb, right?
Exactly. So we rented out for most of the year, and then we take a couple months for the family. And now this year was the first time we brought the team over. People say, don't you spend enough time with your team?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but don't you want to build friendships with the people you spend so much time?
So how did you speak to your boss and say, this is what I'm going to be doing?
We've got very supportive bosses, but we said, look, we're going to make this work. We will split the team in half. Half the team will go, half the team will cover it for this time, and then next year we'll swap that around.
Wow.
So I went to the other half and said, guys, do you mind, stepping up and managing the
I want to be
force?
part of your team, man. Come on.
Well, these guys had to travel. We had guys from India, Taiwan, Singapore. I'm South African, totally different cultures. One of the guys had never been overseas before, like me, a youngster.
Amazing.
A lot of them have never been to Italy.
What an amazing first trip.
Brilliant. He went on the way from Mumbai to Tuscany. He stopped in Switzerland. It was the easiest flight. He stayed 2 days there. He walked 40,000 steps both days. He just walked it flat.
Listen, I'm glad he walked because taxis are bloody expensive in Switzerland.
that's probably
He'd
the
have to
reason.
take out a new mortgage.
But he absolutely, I think he loved it, and we got to then play golf together and simple things. We each had a turn to cook a meal, and you get to see what your team is like.
Yeah.
One guy we didn't know, he used to work as a chef.
Wow.
He makes the best eggs Benedict I've ever had.
Okay.
So in the morning, you've had a few glasses of wine the night before, and you get one of the guys that is typically your funds analyst is now making the best eggs Benedict
That's
ever.
because everyone's got little hidden secrets, what talents that they're good at.
You start to get to know a little bit of this. Yeah.
Amazing. So, and then the Philippines, because I know you've done a lot of charity work before. So what are you doing there?
So I love, obviously, charities. I think we all do. But I think there's something that a lot of corporates miss, in my personal opinion, is the massive feeling you get when you're not only helping, but you're also building the team. So if you do a charitable event where, for instance, like the one in the Philippines, we're going to help them build their home. So basically, we'll be mixing the cement and maybe putting a few bricks on alongside the builders. But we have to do something so different to our normal day job.
Yeah.
The energy we have to bring there is going to be quite high. So the people that have committed to do that already know they've got to bring a level of energy. But the energy you get back is 3 times. And the amount of bonding you get from a hard days of real work at the end, and you're sitting and you're having a meal together, and you think, we built that wall.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
It's going to be really fun, really looking forward to it. The guys that can't do the trip, they will help with fundraising. Yeah, we'll do bake sales and a bit of fun. We raise a decent amount of money, like 25, 30,000, which is great for the charity. It's not
an amazing
a crazy project, but it's really just good fun, which is great because it brings everyone together.
I think the one thing that is kind of overlooked at work is that fun element. Because I've got a thing in my firm, we do Friday gags, we do wind-ups, and just, you got to enjoy yourself a little bit. And if you're not able to have a glass of wine on a Friday afternoon with your colleagues, what are you doing?
And it can be simple, right? We used to do it in London before, the Google days when you weren't allowed to use Google.
Yeah.
It was you had to come up on a Friday morning with some sort of question that everyone had to put their answer in. And the furthest away had to buy lunch. The one that won had to buy the first drink. So it's how many black taxis would you have to pile on top of each other to get to the height of Big Ben?
Oh, really?
So you all got to think.
Yeah.
And then someone says some stupid number and you can take the laugh out of them and someone gets simple things, but it makes the day a little bit more fun, right?
Yeah, of course it does. So Aberdeen, why did you decide to leave to go to Bank of Singapore?
I was fortunate that things were going well, and I wanted to kind of try to take in essence, in Singapore, where's most of the money at the moment? It's still largely in families and in private wealth, and I thought from an asset management perspective, it might be interesting to follow this new fast-growing pillar of wealth. Now, asset management also worked there, but I wanted to see what that side was.
Because you had the foresight, because a lot of people are now thinking of doing it, right? And not everyone had the courage. Had you been thinking about it already, moved to private banking?
The margins, at least they're getting smaller, but the margins were higher there for products.
Yeah.
You had more interaction with the clients. I think that's where the world's kind of going. It used to be, from an investment perspective, we had access to information no one else had. That's why I had to talk to investor. Then it was we had more information than everyone else. You had to talk to investor. Then it was we could analyze more information than everyone else. You have to talk to investor. Nowadays, most investors have all of that.
Yeah.
But they don't have that one person can take all that information and make it applicable for you. So that is where private banking is about, is we've got all this information, we've got access to best fund managers in the world, hedge funds, you name it, but we can dive in and make it accessible to you. So it comes down to communication again.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how, and I read this interesting post on LinkedIn, this fantastic strategist, economist, he comes up with amazing topics. Yet he was saying the most important skill for him, even though he's extremely smart, is communication. Being able to get that idea across to your staff, to your team, to your clients.
Yeah.
And private banking is about communication.
It's everything.
So to me, I thought that's really going to be the future, being communication, not just private banking, but whoever's focusing on the communication part massively, that's going to be the industry that'll be around when the computers start taking away the other stuff.
I think that's what differentiates you, because my analogy is you can have the world's greatest love song. Whitney Houston could have recorded it, you could have it. But if it's not played on the radio and you're not getting on, iTunes, you're not going to make any money. No one's going to hear it.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Someone said it to me recently. They said it used to be not, it used to be what you know. Then it's not what you know, it's who you know. Now it's who knows what you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you've got to be that visible thought leader.
For sure.
Because that really helps you kind of show how you can help the people above you.
Yeah.
The more you can help the people above you, the more likely opportunities are going to find you.
Yeah. So then you were doing DPM fixed income.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Fantastic opportunity to talk to. I went from a fund manager where you've got maybe, a handful of very big clients. You wouldn't get out of bed for less than $500 million, a new client kind of thing. This was really big size.
Did you start meeting the clients?
At DPM?
Yeah.
Yes.
Straight away.
Absolutely.
But a lot of DPM people don't necessarily like to meet clients. They prefer to be behind the screen. But I don't sense that with you.
Yeah. I'm not a super extrovert by any means, but I appreciate that. Why are they buying into a DPM product?
Yeah.
They want someone to hold their hands when it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
Because when it's really, really good, anyone can invest, right?
Great point.
And
Great point.
They do need to have that feeling. So what we're selling is stable product with the ability to talk to the person and have them hold your hand and support you during the tough times. So we had then 1,000 clients, and we needed to work in an efficient way of being able to show them that. So we started bringing in a bit of technology to enhance that. Augmented advisor, I like that term, where it's not about automating it, but it's about making our job easier so we can have all the reports, all the analysis, and then you can go to the clients that you need to and have that face-to-face time and connect. And that was quite an interesting challenge to go from a very, very asset management focus purely on performance and that to you need a bit of both. You still have to have very good performance, but you don't have to be the absolute best if you can manage and keep the clients comfortable during the periods when everyone is down.
Yeah.
So
again, it goes back
challenge.
to our communication and engagement. That's a big thing.
I think so.
What was the transition like from asset management to private banking? Was it very smooth? Was there a big difference or not really?
I think so. Asset management is about, the clients are about, they know what they want. They want the absolute best fund manager at the cheapest price.
Yeah.
And they know what the product is. In private wealth, I think largely these are super intelligent people that have earned a lot of money. They've made their money, arguably in most cases, not in the finance world. So they might not know exactly what product they want. They know they want this kind of income with this kind of risk. You tell me what you need. So you had to shift your whole mindset of I'm an expert only at this to listening a lot more, hearing what they want, and then trying to fill in the gaps. Okay, you probably want this, you probably want this, you probably want this within the war chest that you have. So it's a little bit more dynamic, I feel.
I love it. Now, tell us about your current role, because you've got a great role. It's very unusual. Tell us a little bit about. So CIO, head of DPM, head of managed investments.
And quants now.
Yeah,
well,
wow.
Because I think they all come together.
They're all inextricably linked, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm really excited about it is we've got a very big brand that's been around for 100 years next year.
Yeah.
Yet the part of the business that I'm involved in, it's got the startup energy. You literally can feel on the floor. It's about how do we monetize this? How do we increase penetration? How do we get to know our clients better? We are the smaller part of the business, and we want to be that high touch. A lot of businesses are saying we can't be high touch; it's not scalable. But we want to be that high touch solution to our clients, and we can because of where we are at the moment. We're a decent size, but we're not one of the big boys, and we're moving towards it. But that kind of energy you can feel. I mean, pros and cons, right? Some people just don't like it. Some people do.
Yeah.
But that energy has been really exciting. Yeah.
But I think if you're part of that pioneer batch of people that are growing the business, there's something in that, right? So if you look in the rearview mirror, 5 years after that, you've built something, you've accomplished something. Exactly. It's very different. So when I place people, I always look at where the company is in their life cycle and where the individual is. And I think it takes a certain type of person to want to be involved in that kind of build-out story. I think it's like building and renovating a house.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will, it's easy if we just buy this brand new apartment, but you know what? Your profit is not going to be as much, and you can't build it in line with what your thoughts are.
And in a way, it's like you said, if you use the house renovation, I'm petrified. We've done a lot of house renovations. I love house renovations, but I'm petrified of buying a brand new build.
Yeah.
Because to have a total clean slate, I don't think I'll ever decide, or I definitely know my wife won't ever decide on exactly what we want.
Yeah.
But to have some sort of boundaries, to have an existing old home and to work on that and to modify and see how can I knock this wall, how can I do that? That's also really exciting with a business. When you have a business with a framework where some parts have worked, some parts haven't, you have an outline and you have existing clients and you say, okay, what works, what doesn't? How can we maximize? How can we do this? That kind of, I think having some sort of limitations or having some sort of like boundaries, also working in the context of a very large company.
Yeah.
I think that also makes it exciting. It means you have to kind of think outside the box. You can't just recreate the box.
Yeah.
Which is quite good.
And your remit geographically, what is it?
So our focus under the boss at the moment is Asia with Dubai. So we have offices in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Dubai, but we're growing
I
aggressively.
think
so
Dubai and private banking, it's just, there's a lot of room for growth there, right? For sure.
It's also that startup mentality where people, Dubai's gone up and down with dips in the property and all the rest, but they've still had this kind of, we will get through whatever. And the people that are there are this kind of growth mindset. It's
they're on
a lot
top
of
of
energy. Everyone wants to kind of move forward.
What I think is interesting now, because I think Saudi Arabia is making a real play. So I think, in Dubai, they're going to have to run a lot faster, to stay where they are and keep going. I'm interested in your journey because very few CIOs manage the investment side, right? So you are in charge of the alts. Talk a little bit about that. How did you get to take over that part of the business?
Well, typically what happens is there's so many different things that you get pulled in lots of different directions.
Yeah.
As a CIO, you've got to speak a lot with clients as well, which is very important and also fun and challenging at times. But as an investor, you've got to be also focusing on the market, and you've only got so much breadth. So I'm fortunate that I've got a combination of a quant team that can help do a lot of the qualitative information. So when I sit down, I know where I need to focus. And I've got portfolio managers that are really good, that I can trust them to manage the portfolio so that I can kind of deviate and say, okay, I'm now putting on my investment hat. I'm going to go and sit and just focus in on this and try to understand where the problem is. And normally it would happen when something is not going 100% right. All brains together now, guys, let's try and understand this, and we'll focus and we'll decide on the next trade. The running, when the wind's blowing nicely, the team's got the sails up and they run. But in anything, when there's crisis, you should get everyone together and then, collectively
hash it out.
Yeah. And for us on the alts, like you said, this has now become a really exciting space because realistically, everyone's moved into US equities, right?
Yeah.
It has just become a super overweight because they've done phenomenally well. People say, why don't you should have invested in XYZ. If you actually look at it, US equities has been the best trade for the last 10 years, hands down.
Yeah.
It's just been phenomenal. But people have such high concentration in there that people need to diversify. And where are you going to diversify? If you invest in the US, Europe still has these issues. Emerging markets has a lot of issues. People will invest some, but majority of money is still going to stay in the US. And if you want to get out of US equity but earn the same sort of growth profile, alternatives has been that preference of choice for the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And we think that is going to become massively part of portfolios. So working with private credit, infrastructure, hedge funds, working with these, the guys that I used to work with back at, I'm actually touching base with them now. It's
that must be so cool, right?
Amazing. I'm on the other side of the ship, 15 years back. But trying to see how they go and then also understanding a little bit how an asset management or hedge funds work, they have that niche and they will be the best at that. And then trying to say, okay, that's brilliant, but I still got to get that message across to a billionaire that's made his money on farming that doesn't understand macro hedge fund. Help me get that message to him.
Yeah.
What is the driver that's going to make your performance this year and a macro year more exciting that he wants to say, okay, I'm happy to do that.
That's what I love about private banking because the clients can come from any walk of life. It's so different.
They're so interesting. Yeah.
So, as a manager, as a leader, what can you share with young people up and coming, trying to find their way, in the industry? What kind of advice could you give?
You want to try help opportunities find you. That is the key thing because
I love that.
It's not about charity, right? You're not looking for someone that's going to do everything for you. That's just not going to happen. There's too much competition. People are too busy. There's too much going on. You've got to help someone else want to give you that opportunity. Or even better yet, the opportunity he is giving you is really beneficial for him. So you're solving a problem for him, and you're going to be that person to do that. So I believe you need to have focus where you're a specialty, but be able to communicate that specialty can be used in many different areas. So that visible kind of thought leadership in your space, the guts to put yourself out there. And
I think that's a very key salient point because I think a lot of people, when they're moving up, it's that dichotomy. So like a lot of people said to me, I've been given this additional responsibility but no extra pay, or and I just think if you want to do more, underwrite it, show you've got skin in the game, the money will come, your stock will rise. But I don't see everyone doing that, and I'm always interested. But my mum always used to say, if everyone was outstanding, it'd be very difficult for you to be. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Okay, and what other pearls of wisdom could you share with us?
Oh, mate, I'm still learning every day, right?
Who isn't, man? Who isn't?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably also worth reiterating. Keep trying to learn, but diverse spaces. I'm finding myself more and more harder to make time to just focus on the simple things like communicating, listening, and connecting. It's so easy just to say I've connected to everyone and I sent a few messages on LinkedIn or I've had a few video calls, but actually making that time to go for that coffee or to go for that lunch. And maybe it sounds difficult. For me personally, I sometimes don't mind going and sitting and reading a book by myself, but you have to say, I'm learning more by sitting and talking to someone and listening to what's going on and understanding how the world around them is working.
That FaceTime, I've when I coach people or place them, I always say, look, walk the floor, right? Physically, figuratively, and not just your immediate team, even the parent company, because you need that visibility, right?
And, you've also, I think, got to be a bit selective. I love chatting to you. Honestly, because you have a great balance of listening and also adding and also directing the conversation sometimes. Maybe this one is a bit more me talking, but when we chat and have a drink together, you will share things on X, Y, Z, and it'll pop memories from this, and I'll add a little bit and actually get to have a conversation. But at the same time, I'm learning a lot and I'm enjoying it. And if you can find people that you can have a regular conversation to do that with, you're winning.
I think I've thought a little bit about this because I love talking to people, and I've kind of analysed, because when I'm coaching my guys, I think in any brand new first conversation, I think 75% is not actually about work, because if you take 10 heads of DPM, they're already doing the job. Okay, it's going to vary a little bit, but their personality, their ability to engage, their ability to sell, I think that's key. One of the things I think again really differentiates you is your understanding about raising awareness of what it is that you and your team are doing, and the concept that we're all having to sell. If you're a principal of a school, you're having to get, students to sign up, or you want a new curriculum. Where did that come from? I guess that hustle went all the way back to South Africa, right?
I think so. I think, like you said, we're all salesperson. But the problem is a lot of people, when they hear that, they think, second-hand car salesman. I'm selling junk.
Correct.
You want to sell something that you're happy to buy yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not selling something you're not happy to buy, that's when you should be considering to shift or change the product that you're selling.
Do you read any things on sales and self-development, or have you done in the past?
Broader area of reading, always trying to understand. But I think from sales particularly, because it's such a communication thing, I learn more from listening to people that I can see that are successful at selling.
Know what they do.
Yeah. So podcasts and stuff is great, but you chat to people that are doing it today.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And you can see how, particularly in given their constraints, the size of their team, their client base, the market, how they can be successful. It's like, wow, how did you find that niche?
Yeah.
And then how did you make it that someone wanted to kind of work with you? And okay, that is interesting. How do I apply that? Then it's taken that time then to say, okay, how do I apply that to myself? It's like, you can read 10 books, but if you read one and apply it, it's more than all those 10. That's
the thing. So I've got this great exercise in my office, which is, we've got 131 books in the company library, and to put any book off the shelf, you flip it, stop, right? Take that extract and make it relevant to what you're doing right now. Because the reality is I think you can apply anything. So if you've seen a bad boss, just don't do what he did. Right, reverse engineer it, and I think that's so important.
Can I share with you something that I've been trying recently? It's not a hack, because that's just there's no real hack to it.
Yeah.
But it's a way of using technology that's quite exciting with reading books.
Go on.
So you take a book that you have access to a large amount of the text involved.
Yeah.
You get a lot of reviews or the PDF or something of the sort. You plug it into your ChatGPT and you say, summarize this for me. You say, give me 3 summaries of this.
Okay.
You start reading that. Then you say, okay, I own this book to ChatGPT. I want to explain this to you. You are a 7-year-old. I want to explain it as simple as possible that you understand it as a 7-year-old. ChatGPT, give me feedback if you don't understand it. Then you have to write into ChatGPT, this book is about this. These are the main concerns. And it actually comes back and says, okay, but that's not very clear. Can you expand on that? If you can explain that concept of that book to a 7-year-old, that's Richard Feynman, right? He talks about the famous physicist. If you can simplify a complex that a 7-year-old can understand it,
Yeah.
you are winning.
Yeah,
And
100%.
ChatGPT allows you to do it without feeling like you're being silly, and it actually gives you that feedback, says, I don't understand that, that's too complex, can you simplify it?
Yeah.
That idea of trying to break it down into a simple sentence, once you get it that you can explain it to a 7-year-old, you can explain it to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's quite a nice way of doing it.
I actually think, the best business people can take something that's very complex, make it simple, and then maybe make something simple very complex and sell it. We've seen that a few times in our industry and business. So what's next for you? How do you see your business growing, and how are you going to enhance the platform?
Look, I'm very fortunate that the team are very entrepreneurial. When I mean the team, the managers are above me. The guys are in a fantastic trajectory. We're hitting our targets. We're moving forward. This is a big year for us. I'm so excited to kind of be along. For me, my role now, as I said, I think is great because I get to help set the view top down with the investment committee. We have a big investment committee across Nomura.
Yeah.
So that sets the tone. But at the same time, if we align that with the products that we like, meaning I'm selling something I would buy.
Yeah.
I did feel in the past, not at firms I worked at, but when you looked at, often what people were selling was stuff that they were told to sell.
Yeah.
It wasn't maybe stuff that they would buy themselves. So much harder to sell something you wouldn't buy yourself.
There's always a compromise. That conflict of interest doesn't help, right?
So if you've got if you're part of the investment committee, which is setting the tone, and then you can also be part of the team, which is putting the right products, be it a DPM and managed investments, to be able to put the two together, it makes it a lot easier to sell. Because you have conviction in it. And that conviction comes across when you talk to a client. You're trying to sell something you don't really like, people can pick that up.
No. Have you spoken to many other people in your role in other organizations and become friends with them to see whether or not because I've actually become friends with a lot of my so-called competitors. And, I go back to my boxing days and I said to my son, that guy you've just fought, be it if he won or lost, that guy potentially, he could be your best friend because you share the same dreams. You're both getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a run. And so actually in my industry, it's you've got to respect your competition. But have you done so?
I do enjoy doing that. And I find actually when we do get together, the last thing we talk about is work.
Yeah, that's the irony. Yeah. That is the irony, because you know what's going on, right?
It's talking about how do you maximize your free time? How do you enjoy the time with the team, with the family? What are you doing? What's your next side passion project? Because we all know, you need to work hard to stay ahead of the game, and we're all working hard. But it's to see how they manage that energy.
Yeah.
Because successful people, they can bring that energy consistently. You start running out of energy, it's tough. And I'd rather learn from guys that you can see top of their game. If they're top of their game, they must be managing the energy well. I want to learn that.
But how do you do it? Because the thing about you and I, we're always on. But I think we're probably both introverts. That's what people might not recognize, right? And I was explaining to a friend last night. For me, a great definition of an introvert is when you spend time with people, even if you enjoy it, it drains your energy, right? But if you're an extrovert, it makes you buoyant. And so how do you keep your energy up?
Well, I think you're never perfectly up. I think you go through stages, but you've got to, I think you've got to find those charging points along the day, along the week, along the month that will keep that energy up. So this morning before coming here, my kid isn't doing 100% well. I felt a bit tired, but before I came here, me and him went to the coffee place around the corner and we played 3 games of Uno. I lost 3-2. He's a 5-year-old. He's extremely competitive. And the goal was if he won, and he's staying home today because he's not feeling well, he could watch some TV this morning.
Okay.
So it was a very competitive match. And it was very fun. But that's 45 minutes early this morning it's boosted me. Today I'm pumped.
And you'll never get that time back. You'll never regret that time.
Never. So you've got to find those moments on a daily basis, on a weekly, on a monthly, on a quarterly basis. The quarterly one for me is the Tuscany thing at the moment. To recharge. And that then helps you through the rest.
So I reckon you're probably the only CIO in Asia that can do a muscle up. What do you reckon?
Movement exercise, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah. What are you doing now to stay fit? You're still looking great shape, man.
Thank you, mate. I still try calisthenics.
Okay.
Calisthenics is like, they'll hate me for saying it, but it's like older man gymnastics.
Yeah.
It's much more just upper body and less the legs and backflips and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that kind of movement. Do a lot more yoga now.
Okay. How do you find yoga? Do you enjoy it? It's painful.
Oh God, I'm so inflexible. But again, it's one of those things that you could do really early before the guys are up before my boys up in the morning.
Yeah.
So I want to spend a bit of time in the morning before work.
Yeah.
So I can do yoga before. do that. But if I'm too tired in the morning, you could also do it in the evenings. You could get an hour in. It's the same for calisthenics. So my exercise is now around maxing my time with my youngster and work.
What about your diet? Because you stay slim, right? Do you watch your diet? I know you and I both enjoy a great steak and red wine, but you know.
I have a terrible diet, but I have a fantastic wife that is a functional nutritionist.
Okay.
So she feeds me what sometimes tastes like cardboard and green mush, but it's very healthy for me. So I have a very well-managed diet.
So what are her sort of like? What does she do? Does she have personal, private clients, or?
So she moved from interior design architecture to more functional medicine, and it was a product that they had a family illness,
Okay.
and I think the whole family then focuses on how do you find solutions.
Brilliant.
And the solution was, you know what you eat is really what you are.
Yeah.
That affects so many different things. So the focus went into nutrition. She's been working in a nutrition clinic for a long time. Now she's a coach that focuses on, we all know what we have to eat, what we should eat. Why
Yeah.
don't we? Right? It's a simple question, but it's bloody hard to answer.
It's-
So it works around trying to motivate people to eat the right things, make it easy. It's not just about giving the recipe, because
Yeah.
it's still so hard to follow it.
Yeah.
So that kind of motivation and having the cheat days and having we have Fruity Friday, which we'll
Okay.
have cakes on a Friday morning.
Okay.
And you have those treat days, but you've also got to know.
Friday's a good day in your household and in the
Lovely
office,
day.
isn't it?
Lovely day, yeah. But yeah, so it's finding that balance, but at the same time, so like I find fasting very good.
Yeah.
Just because it cuts out a meal or two for me.
What's your? I've just done a 48-hour fast.
Wow, that's
And I was trying to do 72 hours, and I think I could have done it, but Isaac put me into 3 big meetings the next day, and I had brain fog, right? Because I was on the phone to my brother, and he said, "Have you been drinking?" And I said, "No, why?" And he goes, "You're slurring your speech." But are you doing like? Because I don't normally eat breakfast, and actually for a long time now, I've only been eating 1 meal a day. But it depends on the exercise I'm doing.
Exactly. So that throws me out. It depends on the exercise.
Yeah.
But typically, if I'm not doing a heavy exercise day, we'll try eat relatively early in the night, and I will won't have breakfast, and I'll maybe have a late lunch.
Okay.
And then
And do you bring lunch in with you, or because the thing is, where you work, there aren't that many eateries, or they're quite far away, and that's why I love Raffles Place, because it's affordable, right? The eateries where you are a bit more expensive, right? What do you do for lunch?
I don't know if it's a flaw or if it's a quality, but I'm extremely loyal to somewhere I like. I go
Okay.
to the same coffee place every single morning.
Okay.
I have had the same lunch place since I started with Aberdeen. I go to the same place every day and have the same lunch.
Really?
I had the same hairdresser in Singapore for 14 years, for 12 years. Sorry,
At least you have a hairdresser.
But exactly. So to me, I don't have to think about lunch.
Yeah.
When I'm having lunch at the office and we're not seeing clients or connecting, which I should always do more of,
Yeah.
I go to the same place. I have chicken, pumpkin, broccoli, white eggs, and a bit of feta cheese and pesto sauce on. And it's delicious.
Beautiful.
And I have it every day, and I really enjoy it. And my wife thinks I'm the most boring person ever when it comes to food. But for lunch, I don't have to think.
But it works.
I go and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And dinner's always a mixture, but certain things I like just being the same place. I don't have to think about it, and I can just, when I get there, I can relax.
But does she? Do you know what she subscribes to? Because I think nowadays there's so many fads in everything. But I think ultimately what our mums taught us, which was a good balanced meal, a bit of everything, right? But what is she saying? She's saying you should. Is she vegetarian, or she has a very broad diet like you?
Very broad, yeah. We've tried lots of different, there's always a quick fix that you will try the fad of, but it always comes down to you need your protein, you need your vegetables, you need your fiber. And I think the biggest thing that we've found is, and we noticed it because unfortunately her grandmother passed away.
Okay.
And my wife loves sentimental things.
Okay.
And she was given all the sentimental crockery. The plates back in the 50s were this big. We've just gone to bigger plates and bigger portions. I think we just eat so much more.
Yeah.
So
Isn't that funny?
It is
Yeah.
weird, right? And if you actually reduce the amount, you don't have to eat that much.
People say you should use a small fork and spoon.
Smaller plates, smaller portions. So we started doing that.
Yeah.
We eat the same food. We have some treats and stuff, but the portions
Have you ever measured your food? Because I did during COVID, because I wanted to get back into shape.
Yeah.
And I got down to 70 kg, which was my weight when I was 21, 22.
Wow.
I couldn't maintain it. But what was really weird was I got to 70 and I thought I'll start eating a little bit more. But what happened was I kept losing weight because I realized my metabolism, it was like it had momentum. Yeah,
Which is
so
awesome, right?
it was, but I didn't feel as strong, and it wasn't sustainable.
So maybe you need a little bit more than that than when you were 20s, right? But still, I do feel like the fasting to me is a way of ensuring that I eat less of good stuff. I want to eat good, but I want the portions of good to be, because I was finding I was going through a stage where I was eating all healthy stuff, but healthy snacks and healthy this and big portions of fruits and vegetables. But I was eating so many calories, and good calories is still a calorie. And I wasn't able to maintain, or I was working harder. So smaller bits, I think, is...
You know where I have been consistent is in adult grape juice.
Grape juice.
Red wine.
You got me there for a second,
So when I lived in the US and I was working Asian hours, it was brilliant because I would put the kids to sleep and I'd be on the phone, and they were younger at the time, so I'd be on the phone about 8, half 8 with my team here. And I wouldn't say I became an alcoholic, but I would open a bottle of wine. And I would work normally to about 2:30 in the morning. And I would be speaking to people, and I said, "Mate, you're in great form." I said, "Yeah, how are you wide awake?" And I was chugging a little bit, but it was brilliant. So now I still...
You go to Europe and you're in a very big business and you go for a business lunch.
Yeah.
You'll have one glass of white wine with the starters, one glass of red wine. They're not massive glasses.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more than that, and it's just relaxed and everyone feels chilled.
Yeah.
It's smaller. There's definitely a space in life to enjoy it, and a little bit of alcohol for some people is an enjoyment.
Yeah.
If you overdo it, then
then you got a problem.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing is like my wife works from home still a lot, and I can't do it because I'd end up having a siesta. I couldn't walk past my bedroom without, I'll just lie down for 5 or 10 minutes. But the one thing is, during COVID, I realized like you either become a chunk or a hunk. And I thought...
You became a hunk. You trained a hell of a hunk.
I really went for it. And because I just thought I'm getting 2 hours of driving back because I'd do the school run and I'd be collecting all the kids. And I just thought I'm getting 2 hours of my life back.
But if you don't mind me saying, the little bit I know about it is you also were able to bring it in. You have a young son that's energetic, that is sporty, that is in the same sort of passion. So you're tying your passion with his passion. You're able to share your insights with him, and you're getting massive feedback, and it's time that you will never forget. So what kind of motivation is that? And that's, if you can align a few things together, wow.
You know what was interesting, because I post quite a lot of things on my social media about me exercising. And my wife hates it, right? But actually, it's to help other people. And there's a journey, because I've found if I see you doing something, like when you're doing a muscle, I thought, wow, Gareth's doing this. Let me give that a try, right? And
bloody hard, eh?
It's flipping hard, and there's so much technique involved, right? And one of the things I find really interesting is talking about kids, my journey with my son. So Caden's almost 6'1" now, right?
Wow.
And I'm 5'6.5" on a good day, in socks. And so 2 or 3 Fridays ago, I had lunch with Isaac. I went for a coffee, and I dropped a bottle of champagne off that we just placed this guy. And then he texted me, said he was going to boxing, which is very near my office. So I turn up about 5 o'clock, and he's done an hour and a half session. So he's a bit tired. And I said, when I'm winding him up now. I said, when I was 17, I think you would have lasted a couple of minutes only. And he goes, do you reckon, Dad? I said, do you want to go a couple of rounds? And he said, very seriously but nicely, I don't want to hurt you, Dad. So I said, do you reckon you would? And he goes, I know. So I didn't warm up. So we start sparring.
Excuses already.
Well, I do that, and I step forward. All I know, I got clobbered 5 times. And I think in 2 to 3 seconds, tops. And I go, shit, what's just happened? And I said, it's going to be like that then. He goes, really? I thought you wanted to... So I kind of got him into the corner, held on to him.
Technique of a skill.
Yeah, took a few swings, missed, caught him with air. We finished the round, and I was messed up. Now, I've got an ego like most men. I went to sit down. I said, son, I've got to get back to the office. Well done. Fair play to you, mate. I got back to the car. I was smashed out. And I called my colleague. I said, can you please bring down some cold water? I drove home. That journey at that time probably would take 25, 30 minutes. It took 51 minutes. I drove very slowly. I was wrecked for 4 hours. And then this is the scary thing, because I thought I was relatively fit. but it's not. I'm not fighting fit. My traps and my neck were sore for 3 days.
These are muscles you forgot you had.
And he kicked my ass. And I texted him. I said, and he was
Actually,
out all
this
night.
isn't recorded. You'll never hear it because you're not going to tell him that, right?
I did. I told him. I said, and I was so proud of him, right? And it's a kind of passing of the torch. But the thing about children, as you know, is just it's a journey, right?
And, I think that's interesting, and I'm going to learn from you, and I'm going to pick your brain. Especially when we're trying that adult grape juice.
Yeah.
I really think it's exciting because at some point, like you said, I remember my dad saying he remembers running on the beach, and he used to always run, wait till I caught up, and then always win. He would never let me win until I started beating him. And
how old were you when you started beating him?
I would say 12. He would say 18, but somewhere in between. But he remembers clearly that moment where I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But you want to keep them driven. I want to keep him motivated so he can win sometimes. But he honestly won an Uno today, and when we play football and stuff, it's a competition. You want to keep the drive.
I think so.
And you want to make sure that they earn it. And the last thing is that the kids feel like you've given them the game, I feel, especially for boys.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a weird feeling when Sherbet, I'm now second place in the house.
It's
when it comes to running or whatever.
Yeah. Well, he still can't. None of them can do him in a sprint yet. I was a runner. But you know what's I can't explain this. I was just thinking about this because my dad was really hard on me, right? And there weren't many compliments, and he loved me and stuff. So it would be, you can't do this, you can't do that. And the thing is, secretly, I knew he believed in me. But I've always had that mentality. I don't give a shit. I'm going to go for it. But with our kids, I didn't want that kind of relationship with them. And it was always like, you can do this, keep going. But now he's older, it's a little bit of needling, right? Because we both know he can kick my ass, right? That's fine. We know that. But I admire him so much. So he lost a boxing match, and he came third in Singapore 2 years ago. And he was the youngest, and he fought this guy who's 6'3", great guy. And he was really sad. And he had a little bit of a cry, and he put so much into it. I said, mate, you came third in Singapore on your first outing. Outstanding. Yeah. And actually, I think it was an early stoppage. But he blew me away. This guy's family were all there, and they probably didn't recognize Caden because he was wearing his headgear. So when he took it off, and he went to congratulate all of them, and he said, look, it was an honor to fight your son. And I said, I'm so proud of you. But then afterwards, he saw the fella and he said, congrats, mate, that was a great fight, but I want that rematch. And I love that. I love that, right? Because and then the other thing that I've learned about martial arts and boxing is there's a level of respect. So all of his teammates, they'll always say, sir, when they meet me. And I just love that. And I think the thing about that part of sportsmanship is huge. Right.
I think that's when we started the conversation about sports, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the amazing thing about sports is there's very few sports when you leave the pitch and you don't want to shake the other player's hands, even if you've lost.
Yeah.
You've had a great experience, it's been close, or you knew you were just outmatched, but you appreciate, I'm going to work harder for this because I love this game, and no one loves losing, right? No. Very few people love losing, so you want to get better, and that's the excitement that energy brings. So sports, it teaches you so many things that can be applied in a world today where communication and drive and getting past the solution is probably more important than what you know or which book you read or which university you got this. Because that stuff is becoming commoditized with information.
It has. Just to wrap up, I want to tell you this quick story. So I'm a big movie fan. And I don't know if you love Clint Eastwood, but I love Clint Eastwood. And there's a movie, I think it's called Any Which Way You Can or Any Which Way You Can Lose. And there's Clyde, who's an orangutan, who's the other main character in the movie. And Clint Eastwood's a prize fighter. And he's about to fight a guy from New York who's killed a few people in the story. But there's no internet back then, so he doesn't know what the fellow looks like. So this guy turns up in the town just to assess Clint Eastwood. And Clint's gone for his morning run, and they go for a run together. And this guy's a big guy, and about 4 or 5 miles in, he goes, how far do you run? And he goes, I'll do about 10 miles round trip every day. And you could see on the guy's faces thinking, shit. So they keep running, and they're running across this, it's like a sand mine, and this big fella slips, almost dies. Clint Eastwood pulls him back up. And then he said, what do you do for a living again? He said, well, I work behind a desk. He said, you work behind or you lift a desk? And Clint Eastwood still doesn't know who he is. So that night he invites him out for a drink, and they go to a bar, and someone is... And this is why by the way, I'm going to the US this summer with my girls. my two daughters, and I'm going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, because of this movie in part. So they're in the bar, and someone says something about Clint Eastwood's girlfriend, who's a singer. And this fellow says, that's not very nice, and someone punches him. So then Clint Eastwood starts knocking people out, and Clint still doesn't know who this fella is. And then someone pulls a knife on Clint and goes to stab him. This guy grabs him, beats up a bunch of guys, and Clint Eastwood's looking at him do his handiwork, and then he goes, and he worked out who he was. And then Clint Eastwood says to him this, he said, you know, did you get what you wanted to see? So he's worked out who he is. He goes, yeah, you're fast and you like pain, but I've come across a lot of guys like you, and you won't last, and you've got to be durable. And he said, is that right? And then this fella says, we don't need to do this for brownie points. And Clint said, I'm not doing it for brownie points. And so this is the bit that I liked. He went to go and pay, and Clint Eastwood said, your money is no good here. And the last thing he said to him, he goes, it was a pleasure watching you work, right? Because they're competitors,
exactly,
but
respect.
Yeah, and I've always thought that, right? So in one of my my penultimate last fight, I liked the guy, I respected him, and I wrote him a letter, and I sealed the envelope, and I put it in his locker, and I just said, look, reading this, I'll have just knocked you out, but I really admire and respect you, and I'll come see you in hospital, and I'll come and buy you a beer.
Did you?
Of course I did.
Of course I did. Great place to end.
No, but it was good. But listen, I really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you wanted to cover or chit-chat about?
That was great, man.
It's been so great to see your career just rise, and I'm looking forward to that drink later.
Cheers.
Good man.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, mate.